Let's Get To presents This Just In, news from around the baseball diamond.
All right, so we're here on the breaking news segment. This guy might look familiar to you because he was on not too long ago talking about two other ventures. Mr. Allan Miller is here. And Allan, I want to let you unveil the breaking news dramatically.
Well, we were very fortunate to become part of the ownership group of the Cleburne Rail Roaders, which is the independent professional team that plays in the American Association, which we think is definitely the best of independent ball. And so we are super excited. And of course, with every new brand comes new logos, new redesigns, and all that fun stuff.
Let's talk about how that happened in the first place. How did you get interested in moving out of collegiate summer league ball? And before we dive into it, here's your ultimate compliment. There's a guy who covers, you did an interview with him, covers sportslogos.net, and we've nominated you for baseball commissioner. Hopefully you're getting a phone call someday soon. But how did that happen in the first place?
Well, we're always, a lot of us got locked in last year, and we really spent a lot of time out there just looking at a lot of opportunities. I think, from my background and what I love the marketing aspect of it. I love the event aspect of these teams. So we really looked at a lot of different teams to see where there could be a great opportunity for us to come in as an owner and build out the things that the team may have been weak doing. In that process, we got to meet the owners of the Cleburne Rail Roaders. And they really were very excited about what we brought to the table and really saw an opportunity for a lot of the great things that we do. And so the more we kept talking about it, the more of a great fit it turned into being. And so I say, we're always kind of on the hunt for these different opportunities and experiences. And this was such a great fit for us for a lot of reasons. It is really close to Dallas and Fort Worth. So we're right there in a major metroplex. And I obviously, I spent a lot of time in Austin. So it was very convenient in that respect. I think the two things that really got our attention, though, is one, it is one of the most beautiful minor league level stadiums I've been to. They spent somewhere around $30 million in 2017 building this thing. And when I say it's a nice facility, man, there is, you've got an incredible locker room situation. You've got luxury suites. Almost all the seats are in the shade for night games. And as in Texas, that's a really important aspect of it.
Yes.
So the bones are there. And then the other part of it that became so incredible is there's 115 years of history in this town with baseball. And the more we started to learn about it, and going back to the 1906 team that featured Tris Speaker, 1911 championship team, and then learning about all the other teams that played in and around the area became fascinating. So we really wanted to tell that story and educate people who had no idea that this team is there and how much history has been behind it.
One of the things I want to laud you on, I don't think I've seen very often a redesign or a new look drop with almost universal approval and acceptance. And I saw people just, I'll be honest, I was late getting to the initial drop to watch the press conference, and I looked at my phone and it was like 15 messages just blowing up about this thing. I also love that you've captured the old with the look, but in a modern way. How important really was it to make it, it's a cool name already, so you really just had to flesh it out, but to really make it feel like old-timey baseball. And I will say, if you can see behind me, the letters on the leg, before I even read it, I knew that's such an old school Astros thing to do, and I loved it.
Well, thanks. I really believe in, and I would say, it's really important. Our designer, Kevin McLaughlin, who is a huge Uni fan, and we worked very closely together on this. A lot of this came from his initial vision. But what we both agree in and are both really big proponents of is that everything in a logo has to have meaning. Everything. I mean, everything from a color to a font choice to a hand design to why something's there to how do you integrate things that have meaning to the local, have meaning to a national level, have meaning to baseball. It's just something we believe in. We're also, people think because we're with the Pickles that we're this crazy, wild, outlandish thing. And honestly, our real aesthetic is heritage. Our aesthetic is really traditional, very clean. So when we talk about jerseys, We want this to be reflective of the past, but have a really interesting modern take on it. And, I think that all of our jerseys do that in different ways, which was really exciting. And the one that, it's interesting, and you can tell me being a fan of this as well, is we kept Spike, the mascot.
Yeah.
And I will say I can't think of many other rebrands that still keep an aspect of them and just change it a little bit. And that was something we wanted to do. We didn't want to kill Spike. Spike's a great mascot. We just wanted to give him some company. And that's what I think the rebrand does.
Yeah, and I think that was a strength. I think what it does is it shows you the vision you guys have of it's sort of easy to come in and just change everything to change everything's sake and then make it temporary and change it 10 years later. Like you said with the Pickles, I mean, that's a beautiful jersey the Pickles wear with the script in blue. Like it isn't, I love them, but it isn't the Savannah Bananas. It isn't that. There's a place for that too. Obviously, they're very successful what they do, but the old school baseball guy in me and then all the staff of my show were just like back and forth at just this look. But talk a little bit about Spike. He is a cool mascot. And then you added another one. Who did you add?
So Spike is a cool mascot. He is a Spike though. I think what we always kind of got back to is, he's a little bit limited in what he can do because
Right.
he's a Spike. But what we did introduce is we introduced Gandhi. It turns out Gandhi was down by the railroad. He was kind of bummed out because he's not allowed, they finished the railroad. He doesn't have a job anymore and he was super bummed. But luckily, Spike ran into him. He took his hammer, he attached it to a baseball bat, and he gave him a new gig. And he said, come on down to the stadium and hang out with us and we can have fun all summer. So Gandhi is this old school rail bum guy who's a hardworking guy, works on the railroad. Has a great mustache. I think, we're celebrating mustaches here. I mean, I think one of Spike's great things is Spike's got a great mustache. Gandhi's got a great mustache. And, there's a lot more about Gandhi that's going to come to light in the next few months. But he's a very important character moving forward for us.
How important is it though, to really build a story? Again, the description of the uniform changes is exhaustive, and it does really touch back to all these points in Railroaders history, including the Astros connection, which I was unaware of. How important is it though to really make sure that brand and that identity is three-dimensional?
It's super important to me. I mean, I don't know if everyone shares that. I would probably say for most people who are in baseball is their number one focus. To me, it's not. To my number one focus is building a brand, building a story, and really being a part of history, being a really important part, being a part that is really influential of the people around you and support the community in ways that are really unique. So we think about all those details exhaustively, as you said,
Right.
because we think they're really that important. I don't think everyone else does that. That's why I have a career in marketing. That luckily we're able to help out a lot of cool brands and a lot of other teams. But I think it's really important, and I also think that it's important that everyone should be different, and they have to really, I wouldn't work with the same designer on 10 different teams.
Right.
You have to, whatever aesthetic and elements that we want to go forward with, we have to make sure we're working with artists and designers as well that really speak to where we're going and have a real strength for that type of design element.
Looking down the road, you mentioned being the American Association, and I agree. It is probably pound for pound the strongest and most solvent of the independent leagues, even with losing St. Paul in the offseason. They also lost the Air Hogs, which were at least a close proximity team for Cleburne to play. Do you see the American Association kind of growing more south to take some of the pressure off the travel for you guys?
Yeah, I'd say there's absolutely no doubt there's going to be more teams coming through. I think that the real reality is that people are starting to just discover what independent baseball is. And I would even say 5 years ago, it wasn't really even on my radar the level of what it is now. And I think that's just because of the natural progression of baseball and teams and leagues and what happened with minor league baseball and the contraction in that. And, it creates room for a lot of competition and a lot of great players. And so I really think that these leagues are going to grow from a talent perspective and also from a market perspective. I think this is something that's really going to build out. I'm also really, bullish and excited about, the collegiate wood bat level. I think it's incredible. I really like, and I think that people can relate to, and I think both these leagues do a great job of, these are the guys on the rise. There is a AAA, I think, has been in the past really, argued that these are guys on their way down.
Sure.
And there's merit to that. But I think from the independent level we are, and for the collegiate wood bat level, these are all guys on their way up. So the amount of optimism and excitement around these players is really high. So I think as we continue to market that and show people how great the talent level is, how, from wood bat, you're getting guys right out of first round, these guys are going in the first round of the draft. And then you go into independent ball and say, these guys were drafted. They didn't get their bats because they're limited. But these guys are right there. And I think when you see what our player announcements in Cleburne, this guy was in the Brewers Association. The guy we announced on Friday was in the Red Sox Association. We just got a guy from the Orioles. So you're seeing guys that you just can't get the at-bats with the roster sizes the way they are and with fewer teams. So we're going to give guys chances who, with no question, are going to be picked up into the major leagues straight out of the season. And we've seen it, once you start to look at where they're coming from, it's a big talent pool.
And honestly, Allan, there's nothing more like American than that, is people just fighting their, that's why I love it so much. It's why we love you guys so much. And I do think that someday I'm going to be doing, whenever you're commissioner of baseball, don't forget me. That's all I'm saying.
Hey, listen, this is the way how it works. We've got to have people doing what you're doing and supporting all the teams and letting people know about what's going on out there, because, without that, people don't get to explore. They don't know that there's teams in their backyard. They don't know if they can drive an hour and have an experience they never thought of before. When 20 years ago, it was hard to discover. There wasn't cool maps and a lot of these things that we have now and people really talking about these things. You went to your local team and that was it. And now I feel like everyone's minds are being opened up to saying, oh, I can go see the next guys. Oh, I can get an experience. I can sit behind home plate and not cost, my kids college tuition. I think it's a really big part of it.
You're right. You're right. Well, Allan, we are going to be out there on May 22nd. It'll be my first time with the new look. I did go to 2019. I brought a no-hitter against the Rail Roaders with me, so we'll make sure that gets fixed. Jessica's first time. Allan, thanks so much for jumping on Let's Get To again.
Anytime.